of the final product and export under bond. Now, for export under bond, when the credit could not be utilized and which is sought to be claimed as a refund, one exporter taxpayer has to go through the formula of Rule 89.4. In Rule 89.4, effective from 23rd March 2020, a very significant change has been brought out by changing the value of the denominator, the numerator, the turnover, that has been completely changed, and the effect of the value of the export goods, and what has been provided is that it should be 1.5 times of the value as declared, not more than 1.5 times, or actual value, whichever is lesser. So if the value is declared at say 200 rupees, the 1.5 times of the like goods or similar goods, this is what the price is used. So if an exporter is exporting say goods which similar goods, if the exporter has declared a value which is say 300 rupees, 300 times and or 300, and the similar goods are actually otherwise valued at say 200 also, in that case, for the purpose of refund under export under bond, the value will be taken at 1.5 only. And this is a very serious change because it artificially restricts the consideration of the value for the goods exported under bond so as to restrict the claim of the refund for the unutilized credit. And here only the numerator has been changed. The total value, the total turnover has not been, denominator has not been changed. Once the numerator is changed, but the total turnover value is not changed, it means automatically there will be a curtailment of the refund claim. This is a serious change, and this change has been brought out presumably because of the some cases which have come out where there is a very exaggerated value or the overvaluation of the export by some black sheeps in the industry. But this will put the genuine taxpayers who are able to command a very good price in the export market. Normally export prices are higher than the domestic market. Plus export prices are always loaded with lot of other expenses. Still the goods are loaded on the vessel or the aircraft. These are all the factors which normally results into the higher export prices. They will stand to lose because artificially the value will be now restricted. This is, in my opinion, a completely legislative competence is under serious challenge. Section does not provide for any such artificial restriction of the value. Section 15, which provides for the valuation under GST, if my value is accepted and it is not challenged, if income tax accepts my export value, if transfer pricing mechanism also does not allow me to declare the value beyond certain limit, if the custom authorities who are also empowered under, and also Prevention of Money Laundering Act also talks about the overvalue of the export goods, if they do not raise any objection about my export value, in my opinion, merely through the rule, the GST authorities cannot artificially reduce my value and thereby reduce my claim. So this is on 23rd March. There are also issues about what happens to the claim which are filed before 23rd March, but which are actually still pending. And there is going to be, and the legislative competence validity of this rule is under serious challenge and does not make any, it defies the complete commercial logic also. Government is not expected to interfere with the business terms entered into between two businesses. This is repeatedly said by the Supreme Court, unless there are other reasons. And finally, yes.
Can I ask you to give a little more enlightenment on the 20th this month? We are going to have some GST Council meeting, and what are the expectations as an expert? What do you feel that they should be putting it, or they should not be putting it? Do you have any?
My last feedback is this. Very latest feedback is that the meeting may be held somewhere between the 8 to 12 or maybe between 7 and 15, not on 20th June. It has not been officially declared 20th June, and the agenda is also yet not fixed, because agenda will take some time to fix because the date is also not fixed. This is going to be more or less the virtual meeting of the council. I know
there's a major issue which will be talked will be COVID-19 problems.
No, apart from that, I'm expecting that this time some tariff related amendments, sectoral amendment can be taken up. Like one is real estate, another is a health sector. These two could be, because some exercise have been going on for last couple of months on these two sector. Real estate, at least I know because I am involved into that. But health sector is also facing, health sector health has been deteriorating from the day one GST has come.
Do you think there will be some revision in the tax tariff of some medical instruments and medical?
You see, the problem is that PPE, that is personal protection equipments, masks, sanitizers, ventilators, imports have been kept free, right? They are not liable. However, the domestic are all are required to pay. And they are still dilly-dallying. The government has not been able to come to the conclusion how it should be exempted, though they recognize the need. 2 days back, the news came that this can be one way of actually relieving it of the GST burden, these PPE-related mask and sanitizer ventilators, by allowing it as a part of the CSR activities. The problem is that when the Kerala flood happened and the goods were donated by a company without any consideration for the flood hit people, which was considered as a part of the CSR, was not held to be exempted from GST by Kerala Advance Authority ruling.
Okay.
So, unless government actually fixes the Advance Authority ruling, I mean, not overall, I'm not talking about this particular judgment. This particular judgment has only limited value. So these are the issues. What I had suggested, which I had put up in publicly also, is that exemption always breaks the chain of the credit. Therefore, under GST, one should not really go on for exemption. Those days of exemption are over, or they should be considered as over. Because the moment exemption comes into play, why real estate is suffering, one of the major reasons is that though 1% and 5% rate is given, the ITC benefit has been taken away. So I pay 18% on steel, CTD bar and TMT bar. I pay on other ITC. Then in that case also, like paint, I pay 28%. On cement, I pay 28%. On hardware, I pay 18%. All this credit is going down the drain only because I'm given a concessional rate. Medical, entire hospital, all the hospitals, clinics and all, for all the medical health related services, like Service Tech, they have continued with the same philosophy. No liability of GST on the health services given to the patients. But what about their actually inverse supply, their procurement on which they are paying through their nose? Pharma is charging them 18%. The instrument they are paying 18%. This is all actually becoming the cost. And this is what I had cautioned the entire, the medical sector also in a joint meeting, that please ask the government to prescribe 5% rate on the health services and give the credit. You will be able to bring down the bill of the patients. Because we have some inborn allergy to pay the tax. We are very happy with the exemption without really realizing as an Indian taxpayer the ill effect of the exemption under the GST regime. The days of exemption should not be encouraged also. So with this, I think now the realization is dawning upon everybody that exemption is really not helping me beyond a limit at all. Educational, same problem. So I am expecting that something may be done on this aspect, or some tariff related structures. So what I suggested for the private personal protection equipment and ventilator, you give the exemption by way of a refund, just like area based exemption. Not completely foolproof, but they can make it foolproof in the sense the person manufacturer, say the company is manufacturing ventilators, on that they should not charge the GST in the invoice, should not collect it from the customer. They should deposit the GST with the government at the end of the month, and whatever has been paid in cash, whatever they have debited through ITC, the ITC should be allowed to be recredited after scrutiny. Whatever they have paid in cash, that should be given to them by way of a cash. So that way, this exemption by way of a refund will not burden the customer, because the supplier is not charging, manufacturer of ventilator will not charge the customer. Many trust and NGOs are buying the wage. I know one case in the Mangalore, a trust is actually procuring 50 lakh worth of ventilator. They were planning to procure, and 6 lakh by way of a GST was going down the drain. So this is what I have suggested. Something could come in this. And then there are some tariff related changes, and there are some major rule related amendment of the rules may come into the play. This is I am expecting. So in a coming meeting. Coming to the two other important side development are, so one I talked about the formula under 94. Another important for is a 96B. There is a new rule 96B which is inserted under CGST rules, export of goods. Friends, here one important distinction between export of goods and export of services should be kept in mind, which is the legacy of the service tax. Export of services is one of the major conditions to be considered as export of services, that there should be a receipt of the consideration in convertible foreign exchange. The receipt of the proceeds from the foreign buyer is never a condition and is not a condition for the export of goods. If the goods are exported and the money does not come from the overseas buyer, the action may lie under FEMA as well as under the RBI. But the GST law will not consider as a not an export of goods. But export of services, receipt of consideration in foreign currency is compulsory. What has been done through Rule 96B, in case of export of goods, if the proceeds of the sale proceeds from the foreign buyer do not come within the period provided by the FEMA with RBI, along with RBI or extended period, then within 1 month of the expiry of that period, generally it is 9 months. So after 9 months, within 1 month, the exporter has to make the payment of GST with interest. If he does not make the payment with interest within 1 month of the expiry of that period, validity period for bringing the proceeds, then the section 73, 74, both section, depending upon the facts, so cause notice will be issued to him. The moot question here is, and later on if he receives the money, then this will be credited, because whatever refund has been given, suppose he is already given provisional refund of 90%, but later on the proceeds do not come from the foreign buyer for any reason, unless this the non-receipt of the the sale proceeds is waived by the RBI on merits I am saying, this provision will come into play. This is what the intention is. So if he does not receive the sale proceeds and if it is not waived by the RBI, then the refund will have to be paid back by him. And if he does not pay back within the 1 month, then there will be a proceedings. But later on, if he receives within 1 year, then again the refund will be recredited to him. The point here is, when the export of goods is defined under section 2 subsection 5 of the IGST Act does not even prescribe the receipt of the sale consideration as a compulsion, as the precondition, how can the rule make this as a condition by implications and propose to deny me the refund? I have a serious, again, the reservations and doubts about the validity of this provision also, the validity of this Rule 96B. But please keep it in mind, before this validity of this rule is challenged, this particular provision may come because of the global, the pandemic is gripped, the entire global community. There are possibilities that the foreign buyer, not knowingly, not deliberately, but because of the compulsion, may fail on his the commitment, may not make the payment. If the RBI does not waive and if the refund is already granted, then there could be some difficulties. Another issue is, this rule has also been inserted from 23rd March. The issue will be, before 23rd March, whatever exports have come place, for which suppose the money does not come ultimately, but the refund of 90% suppose has already come to the exporter, can this rule be applied against the exporter for the past cases? All these issues are likely to arise, I'm afraid, in the coming days. And the last 1 or 2 point is about the ocean freight. Ocean freight has again been a major issue of the controversies between the department. India probably is the only country which has tried to levy earlier service tax and now GST on the ocean freight. I'm not going into the legal arguments. I will only say that Gujarat High Court in 2 judgments, one is Mohit Minerals and the another, I just missed the name, 2 judgments passed on the same day, 2 months back. Gujarat High Court has declared the levy of service tax and levy of GST on ocean freight as ultra virus. And the government might have challenged, I think they already challenged it. Obviously, they would challenge it. And the Bombay High Court, in the All India Bulk Importers and Exporters Association, High Court was to have given some direction. Somehow or other, for any reason, it was heard number of times. The final order has not been passed. There is no final hearing. It has not been passed. But by and large, something like interim stay is operating. The petitions are so many petitions are also pending on the ocean freight levy in the Bombay High Court also, and many other high courts. But Gujarat High Court has, in a very detailed order, has declared the levy of GST as well as the levy of service tax on ocean freight as unconstitutional and ultra virus. And the last two issue is that there is a contents. I was talking about export under bond. When the export under, when a person, a supplier, manufacturer, exporter imports the goods under advance authorization or procures the goods against the deemed export category from the domestic supplier as a deemed export, then Rule 96 sub Rule 10. Rule 96, as I clarified, applies when there is a payment of IGST on the exports of the goods, payment of IGST and export of services. But I'm only on export of goods right now. So for that, the refund claim would lie under Rule 96. There is a condition now under sub Rule 10, right from the 17th, this controversy is going on, that if the person claiming the refund of the IGST paid on exports under Rule 96 has obtained the supplies, has received the supplies in respect of the input under the advance authorization or under deemed export category, then he cannot make the exports on payment of tax. He has to compulsorily go for export under bond. It means that if a manufacturer supplier procures the input raw material under advance authorization for used in the manufacture of export goods, that goods cannot be exported by him on payment of tax. He has to compulsorily go for the export under bond. And there are problems here. It is not as simple as that, because when he goes for the export under bond, the refund can only be of the accumulated input tax credit. And for that, this new formula will hit him, number one. Secondly, export under bond, the formula computation requires a lot of procedural and computation related issues, and invariably the taxpayer will come into the contact with interaction. There will be an interaction with the department. Unlike export on payment of tax, where the shipping bill itself is considered as a refund claim, and then it is more or less the 90% direct refund. Custom approves it. There is a synchronization between the two authorities, and the refund will come directly. This challenge to Rule 9610 has also been challenges pending in the High Courts, Bombay High Court, Gujarat High Court, and elsewhere, whereby when the Section 16 of IGST Act allows me to, gives me the option to make the exports on payment of tax or on under bond, then rule cannot artificially curtail my right and say that because you have obtained the input on against advance authorization, you cannot make the exports on payment of tax. According to us, this rule is discriminatory, arbitrary, and ultra virus the act. It cannot stand the scrutiny of law. The writ petitions are pending. And the last, in the continuation of this, with that I will conclude my talk, and that is on EPCG. As you are all aware, export promotion capital goods. Under that, when the capital goods are imported, there was a complete exemption from custom duty under notification 16/2015. This is an age-old scheme. And there was a CVD SAD exemption also. However, on 1/7/2017, when the GST came, for some reason, those CVD and SAD stood subsumed in the GST. The GST exemption, IGST exemption was not extended. Only basic custom duty was extended. The idea, and there is a 2018, 2017, the DGFT circular also saying that imports of capital goods under IGST, importers should pay the IGST and take the credit. The notion was that since now we are allowing ITC of everything, the life for the taxpayers will be very smooth, very simple, and you pay the tax, you take the credit. What is wrong into that? Everything goes wrong into that, unfortunately. And the life could never have been simple. It is never expected to be a good in simple tax, whatever may be the expectations. And we are now actually paying the price for that. We are seeing that every day. So the question here was that suddenly this was realized because it was resulting into the lot of huge problems for the importer exporter, because EPCG is again subjected to the export obligation within 6 years and the 6 times of the value of the duty saved. So in that case, finally this the wrong policy was it was realized, and on 13th October 2017 IGST exemption was restored for capital goods imported under EPCG. What happens to then, the question arises, what happens to the imports already made between 1/7/2017 and 12 October 2017, where the importers were forced to pay the IGST on the capital goods imported under EPCG. Many have paid this. In this case also, in a recent case of the Prince Spintex Private Limited, Gujarat High Court has held that this exemption restored on 13th October for IGST exemption on the line of CVD exemption is a retrospective. It is a clarificatory, and because the government could not have simply withdrawn this benefit for 2.5 months and then again restored it. And whether, I don't know whether the government has taken it up to Supreme Court, most probably yes, but the petitions in Bombay High Court are also on the similar line pending. In Gujarat High Court also the other petitions are pending on this line. This is basically the fallacious policy which was actually introduced right from 1st July. This eventuality, this should not have been allowed to, this type of controversy should not have been allowed to surface at all, just like TRAN 1. The point is here, the last point is only that in my sincere opinion, and we are fighting on this, and it is this, apart from all these issues of advance authorization, compulsory export under bond, then interest liability on ITC portion and all, these are all pending. The other issue is is the GST, IGST leviable even on the normal imports? That is the one question. In my view, even normal imports which is being made of any goods in the day-to-day basis, the IGST cannot be levied at all because of the very serious lacuna and gap in the custom tariff act provision vis-a-vis the GST provisions. The challenge on this also is pending before the High Court, and the notice is issued to the central government in many cases. The question, what I'm saying is, even normal imports, even today, of the goods cannot be subjected to the IGST. So friend, these are the major recent developments as far as the law and other judicial development, legal development, amendments, extensions. GST, unfortunately, was expected to be a very simple law because it is subsuming all indirect tax, expected to create a one national market with avoidance of the cascading effect by providing seamless credit. But it seems the lesser and lesser credit. I have not even gone into the input tax credit related controversies. And there has been subsequent amendments we are witnessing. I am not expecting the GST law to stabilize anytime soon, maybe for another few years. It is as such not stabilized anywhere in the world, but the type of problems which we are witnessing, the type of malpractices which we are witnessing are frightening. GST has always been considered, GST or VAT is always considered as a fraud-prone tax. India is not the only country which is suffering because of these frauds committed under the GST. We are seeing every day that bogus invoice, fake invoice, and all these issues are there, unfortunately. But these are the cases, bogus refund cases. All world is suffering because of that. Mainly the carousel type of frauds which are the world is suffering under GST. Crows are black everywhere. The point is this, that in their eagerness or the knee-jerk reaction to catch few tax evaders, the type of amendments which are being made is ultimately victimizing the genuine, by and large, the genuine and honest taxpayers. And there we have not been able to change our mindset. From the day one since 2016, practically 2016, and maybe before that, one thing I have been always saying, that GST is not merely a tax reform, indirect tax reform. GST is not, it is more than that. It is not merely a tax reform, it is a business reform. It is not merely a business reform, it is an economic reform, the economic reform. And it is not merely an economic reform in the context of India and the taxpayer mindset and also the tax officer's mindset. It is a cultural reform. It is not simply sitter will be sufficient that we actually simply change our mindset. We will have to change our DNA also. It is a cultural reform for a country like India. With these words, thanks for the very patient hearing.
Thank you, Shailesh Bhai. What an informative speech you have given to us. I think most of our problems which are related to GST might have been clear, but still there will be, as I would still feel that we should go for the open session. There will be some people will have a doubt in between. So I think if they have some doubts, they will clarify with you. So can we go for the open session?
Yeah, yes, you can open, and I will take up the first two queries which has come to me in writing first of all.
Yeah, so please go ahead. I'm opening the.
Yeah.
I'm requesting the host to open up the session for the question answer. So whoso wants to will give us some indication, and we'll open up for them once your one question is and answer is over. Can I Sanjay bhai, can I open it please?
I think it's better that everybody types a question, because otherwise there will be too many overlapping voices.
No.
So, if the session is open,
we will not open up the everybody.
Let him answer. I think let him answer the two or three questions which we have received by mail, and some of the participants have already asked some questions in the chat box. So let us
I'll look
let him
after.
address.
I look into the chat box. But before that, to answer one, there was a query from the R Impex. The company had some problem about where the export was made, and there was a wrong column which had been filled up, and because of that, he has not been able to rectify this.
Devika.
Yes, it is a query. It was a query from R Impex, and they had actually instead of without payment of tax, they have put it under the with payment of tax, and the documents have gone under further processing. Now it appears that there is a running between pillar to post between custom, because the portal says that these invoices have already been considered for the purpose of the processing, and the query is closed. This is what he's saying. This matter has already been taken up. The top brasses, GST Council officials and the board are aware of this matter, and it is expected some circular will come shortly, whereby the instruction will be given to enable such type of cases, the taxpayer to exporter to file the refund claim under RFD 01A under the others category. Till that time you will have to wait, because the system does not provide for any such rectification as of now. But the board is contemplating this. There are many such cases where the either with payment of tax has been declared as a without payment of tax, or without payment of tax has been declared as a with payment of tax. So in such cases, as sooner probably the board is seized of this matter, and there is expected a circular will come. Coming to the other issue of the job work, where there was a processing of goods on the basis of the job work, where the transportation is in both the cases while sending the raw material, and also while sending the processed raw material, the transportation is arranged by the customer. And in that case, who would prepare the e-way bill? In this type of cases, Section 130, Rule 138, it clearly provides that the e-way bill can be generated and generated by either party, by the job worker or by the principal. However, since the transportation is arranged by the principal, it is actually advisable that e-way bill is also generated by the principal only, and the job worker should not be asked to generate the e-way bill. It will smoothen the process. Otherwise, either of the party can say. There is no compulsion that the job worker must do or the principal must do. It is between the commercial terms between. But the law allows either of them to raise the e-way bill. Coming to the first question, I'm now looking at the chat box.
So, the interview with who is talking about. I'll raise the hand.
There is one question from Poonam Durga. Can we file amended trans 1 and trans 2 also, as the original trans 1 and trans 2 were not correctly filed? We have also a writ pending in Bombay High Court in the matter. One can take a support. There are two challenges. One is challenges regarding the challenges regarding the time limit, which is already pending. There is a recent, I think there is somewhere there is a problem. There is another recent judgment of the Delhi High Court in the Bharti Airtel case, whereby they have actually said that this non-facility of rectification of error in the GSTR return is actually against the all norms of justice, and they have directed that the taxpayer should be allowed to rectify the return. So based on this also, if the GSTN portal is not allowing the writ petition, since writ petition has already been filed, nothing need to be said anything further, because that was the only course available. Reverse charge on ocean freight on CIF imports, I have already covered that. The further is what is your opinion regarding the pay to GST on ocean freight? I am very clearly of the opinion ocean freight cannot be subjected to GST. And in fact, our writ is also pending on this. So in the Bombay High Court. So because this question came, I have just mentioned it. Generally, I don't like to say whenever our writs are pending, I don't like to get into that. I don't like to say that, but I'm just pointing out that that writ is pending. All India bulk importers judgment is final hearing is also pending. Then
Yes. Good evening, sir.
good evening.
Yeah, sir. Regarding that question where you were giving clarity, where you could not rectify the error of with payment of tax, payment of tax and without payment of tax. Now, because RFD wasn't filed for that particular quarter, even the continuing quarters could not be filed, because then you would have to file a nil return, nil RFD. So then, what should be done in such a case?
But where is the you are talking about this mistake, or whether you are talking about Tran 1, Tran 2?
I'm talking about the mistake.
No mistake. You know what is happening is you will have to wait for the circular. In the meantime, just to keep your claim alive for the subsequent period, at least you can start filing it on manually. You can say that because this was a mistake and the portal does not have the technical facility introduced whereby this mistake can be the corrected. So we are actually, while we are dealing with that issue, taking up this issue with the board and commissionerate in respect of that particular mistake, the subsequent period we are filing it manually because the system is not allowing.
Okay, subsequent periods we should file manually.
Yeah, file. If the portal does not allow, just keep your claim alive by filing it manually.
Okay, for the same period as well as the subsequent period.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Then
thank you, sir.
Yes, there is a. Can one claim IGST rebate on payment of IGST on export and also inverted duty refund on the same export turnover? In my opinion, yes. But because of Section 54(3) Clause 1, I'll give you, just for the benefit of the members, one example of this query is very interesting query. That suppose take a case of the textile yarn. The yarn is liable to tax at the 12%, and the raw material going into the yarn is liable to 18%. So there is an inverted tax structure. Now this yarn is being exported, say, on payment of tax. The tax which would be paid by the exporter will be 12%. The 12% he will get the refund, obviously. But then what happens to the remaining 6%, which is paying extra on the input and which is actually getting accumulated on account of inverted tax structure? In the similar case, suppose he exports under bond, and again under bond, his claim for the refund for unutilized credit will be computed at 12% only under Rule 54(3) subclause 1. It will be the unutilized credit, but by taking 12% as the rate applicable on the yarn. But what about again happens to the 6% which is getting accumulated? Rule 89(4) speaks about the refund of unutilized credit for export under bond. Rule 89(5) speaks about the refund of ITC unutilized on account of inverted tax structure. In my opinion, both are absolutely exclusive, and both claim can lie. The only care which needs to be taken is that when the refund claim for the balance input tax credit is being filed pertaining to that 6% extra which I am paying on my input in my example, I have to take care of that there is no duplication or the double benefit. Here the hitch lies in the third proviso to Section 54(3), which says that no refund of unutilized credit shall be allowed if the supplier has availed the drawback of the central tax or the refund of IGST has been claimed on such supplies. As far as the first part is concerned, the drawback, the board in its circular number 125 recently has already clarified. 125 is the master circular of the board, and it is running into 29 pages. I would expect all the participants and members, you must go through this new the circular 125, the next circular 131, 133, 135, and 136. These are all important circulars. So coming back to 125, the board has already clarified that if the drawback is availed of the custom, because custom is only now available, customs and excise duty drawback rules 2017. Now excise is no longer in the picture after 30th September 2017 for the purpose of drawback. So it is now related to custom only. So if the custom rebate drawback is availed, still the refund of unutilized credit will be available. That board has clarified. Similarly, if the rebate is availed of, drawback is availed of the CGST portion of the export, IGST paid on export, still the state GST refund will be available. ITC related to the state GST on export input credit. So I have two components. CGST I am paying on the input, SGST I am paying on the input. If I have got the refund of CGST in the IGST portion, still I can claim SGST and vice versa. This is what the board has clarified. There are some technical and other legal issues into this, but I'm not going into that. The problem is the bar created in the third proviso that if the IGST refund is claimed, then inverted tax, the refund of unutilized credit will not be available. IGST, if I'm paying on the exports at 12%, on a plain reading, this proviso will debar me from claiming the refund of the remaining 6% on account of inverted tax structure under a different provision. In my opinion, this the way this proviso is worded, it itself is there are gaps and there are misconstruction here. There is a misconception here also. So long as this 6% does not hit upon that there is no double or duplication of demand, I cannot be debarred from claiming the refund. And if things come to their stage, probably the validity of this restriction can be challenged. But it should be claimed. Then while billing to DT and shipping to a customer outside India by an SEZ, whether an invoice needs to be issued to charge IGST on concessional rate this is basically the ship to bill to type thing. And in the ship to bill to time, the question here will be whether this can be considered as an export or not. In my immediate opinion, this would be considered as an export. No IGST would be payable. This cannot be considered as an import by the DTA. There are some, again, ground level issues are going on. This is a facts-based issue, which probably at this stage I would not like to go into any lengthy explanation or the argument. I would like to further study this. Right? Whether ITC is available on the CSR expenses to companies, the CSR expenses take into account from the ITC. Basically, that is a concept under Companies Act and recognized under IT. It is a mandatory expenditure, social, the social responsibility thing, corporate social responsibility. The question here is whether if I am actually as a part of the some social commitment or social my obligation, if a company suppose donates any goods, say in this pandemic, they donates the goods ventilators without payment of tax. So far, they have not considered so far whether this would be a CSR or not. It would be considered as a CSR according to me. But then ventilators is as of now the taxable product. GST is required to be charged. Since GST is required to be charged, and if it is not charged by me, because I have agreed with the NGO or the trust that I would not load you with the GST, and there is no or suppose there is no consideration also. Forget about GST. It is free of cost. The ventilators are supplied. If the ventilators are supplied free of cost, there is no consideration. Party recipient is not a related party. Therefore, GST will not be applicable at all. Because if there is no consideration, free supply does not attract the GST unless it is covered by Schedule 1 to the CHTC, related person or so, for the branch. That being the case, can it be stated as a free supply by way of a under Section 17(5) and ITC can be denied to me? That is the question. In my opinion, the word used are where there is a gift or a free sample. The goods I am actually donating as a part of the during this for any such purpose without consideration, it cannot come under the gift in my opinion. But in one case, as I said, advance authority ruling has held it to be otherwise. That being the case, this is not a free sample because it is only free sample normally arises for pharma companies and such other companies. If this is not a gift, then there is no other provision whereby the input tax credit can be denied to me proportionate to the ventilators I have supplied free of cost to the trust or NGO or to any other entity. So this is a huge issue about. But in case of CSR, another question that arises is whether input tax, there is a tribunal judgment in a Jindal case where the tribunal, Bombay tribunal has held that that CSR activities ultimately raises the image. I am now on the reverse side. There is another very interesting twist to this entire issue, which is a day-to-day issue. If any goods are actually procured on payment of tax, whether ITC credit is available or not, in the context of CSR, and Bombay Tribunal has said that the CSR is a part of the business activity because it is mandated by IT and Companies Act, and it also enhances the image of the company. Therefore, input tax credit cannot be denied. This is what the Bombay Tribunal has already held. Whether ITC is available for PPE, sanitizer and mask distributed to the employees. If there are two ways this distribution of the sanitizer, etc. would have taken place. Either the company has bought it from the open market on payment of GST and then distributed to employees, etc. Or they themselves are manufacturers and then they have distributed among the employees and staff also. In the first case, they have already paid the ITC on the procurement and now it is being distributed free of cost to the employees. There is no question of any GST liability, but whether the ITC has to be proportionately reversed or not, that will again revolve around whether this can be treated as a gift or not. In my opinion, this does not come under the gift, in my opinion. But as I said, again, advance authority ruling is coming into the way. One has to fight it without bothering about advance authority. The second is that they have actually, they themselves are manufacturers and which are given to the employees free of cost. Again, the same legal position, GST will not be chargeable because employees are not related person. There is no consideration, no GST, unless otherwise case is covered under Schedule 1. So again, ITC proportionate reversal question can arise. This is and again, whether it can be considered as a gift or not. That is the only issue. The next.
Sir, I've got one question from the association to whom we belong, and we normally distribute to our members gifts, and sometimes on a charitable basis, some food particles. Sometimes we go for the food packets and other items. These are exclusive for the members who are our registered members and their staff people. Now, when we purchase, we definitely pay the GST. We bring the material, we give them, but can we claim for the refund of the GST what we are giving to our members?
No, there is nothing like refund. The concept of refund will be totally absent. The entire issue can be looked at from the association from two perspectives. The fundamental question is whether the association is otherwise also liable to be registered under GST. That is the first question. Because if association is held liable to be registered under GST, then the question of taking the input tax credit on all these items which you are procuring from outside will arise. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so
because you are paying GST, you are paying GST
Correct.
on your purchases. If the association is registered, then only it can take the ITC.
Yes, we are registered.
Right. No, I'm coming to that. My question is whether it is required to be registered. So if it is registered or it is required to be registered, then ITC can be taken. If the ITC is taken and whatever is given free of cost to the employees or members, etc., again the proportionate reversal of ITC will arise, and again the same question will arise whether it can be treated as a gift or not. That is a question. This is a facts-based question. Yeah. That is one part. The second question is, in my opinion, going to the fundamental, association like Steel Chamber, for that matter, SUFI, even FICCI, CII, SOCHM, or Indian Merchant Chamber for that matter, professional body like Bombay Chartered Accountant Society, Chamber of Tax Consultant, or All India Federation of Tax Practitioners, management bodies, all these are, which are actually, none of them are, subject to, or even religious trust also, religious educational trust also. These are primarily they are not liable to be registered under GST at all, including residential societies. They are not liable to be registered under GST, in my opinion. The few months back, the Supreme Court gave that historic judgment in the context of the principle of mutuality for service tax and VAT in case of Calcutta Club Limited. I've been always holding the view right from 1st July under GST. My view always was there under service tax also, that the principle of mutuality recognized under income tax applies under service tax also. and the societies and all such bodies which actually are basically the members, there is no distinct personality of the body and the members. This principle applies even under service tax and now applies under GST also. So in my opinion, unless, I mean, one has to go through the memorandum and trust it very carefully, but subject to that, all such bodies which work on the principle where the members themselves actually form the body, committee is formed, and which actually run the affairs of the body, like steel chamber, etc. They are not, they cannot be said to be engaged into the business, and in any.
Can anybody please mute the thing? There's a lot of disturbance. Naresh bhai, can you mute please? Naresh bhai. Yeah. Naresh bhai, please mute the thing. Naresh bhai Agarwal. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So therefore, principle of mutuality is applicable as far as the religious trust and educational trust are concerned. They cannot be said to be engaged into any business activity whatsoever, even if part of their activity are commercial in nature. Suppose like any religious trust giving some facility to the pilgrimage for staying also, some audio cassette, some video cassette which are being given and which are being sold, some literature, religious literature. All these, there are some very finer principles of law which have been laid down in the context of the weight by the Supreme Court in the previous, and these are old judgments, but very beautifully historic judgments laying down the principles. In my opinion, all these principles would come to play squarely under the GST regime also. There is one interesting judgment of the Bombay bench of the Income Tax Tribunal in the case of Sanmukhanand Hall, for instance, where 89% of the income of Sanmukhanand Hall is coming from the renting of the auditorium. Only 11% practically is coming from donation and other contribution. Charity commissioners sought to actually cancel their registration as a trust, charitable trust. Matter went to tribunal, and tribunal said that at the end of the day, all this actually rental related income is only basically to earn the income which is applied for the objectives of the trust only by the Sanmukhanand Trust, and therefore they still maintain their character as a charitable trust. They have applied the Supreme Court principle in all these cases. I don't know whether it has been taken to Supreme Court or not, but this is a very interesting latest judgment of the IT under this. So applying the principle of Calcutta Club, my view is this: such bodies like Members Club, whether it is a Jew club or whether Matosri is a Owners Club, the club at Andheri is a Owners Club. There, this principle will not apply. MIG Club is a Owners Club, but Jew Club or Mafatlal Bath or Gymkhana or such club, Garware Club, these are all Members Club. In my opinion, the principle of mutuality can come into play. For trust, the principle of business, because GST is leviable only if the supply is in the course of business for a consideration. And therefore, there has to be two distinct entities. So therefore, they are not required to be. Right. But once they are registered, the question of ITC reversal would arise for the free of cost given to the members or employees, again, whether it is a gift or not.
And normally, the principle they put is input versus output. That whether if you are doing a commercial activity and you are purchasing something input, then we going commercial activity and going out for the output, then only you are supposed to claim. That is the normal system.
So ITC is available. That's what I'm saying. Under section 16, subsection 1, the input tax credit is available on any inward supply of the goods or services where it is used or intended to be used for the outward supply in the course of or furtherance of business. So if it is not in, and therefore section 16.2 and 16.3, then thereafter make two departure into this. One, if any input or input services are used partly for the taxable purpose and partly for the non-taxable other purpose, then proportionate reversal will come into play. 17.3 says, if any input or input services are used partly for the taxable supply and partly for the exempt supply, again the proportionate credit reversal problem will come. This is an age-old principle, nothing wrong in that. This is being followed across the world in the weight jurisdiction of about 190 weight jurisdiction, more or less.
Thank you, Shailesh bhai. Anybody else please wanted to ask something? May I request somebody else to please question the Shailesh Bhai for the doubts they have got? Samir Bhai? Samir Bhai?
No, everything is okay. Only thing I would just like to ask something regarding what you had asked Shailesh Bhai. I would just further, Shailesh Bhai, I would like to just know that say we have distributed food packets. We as an association, we are registered with GST and we had distributed in this last 2 months, we have distributed some packages and everything and we have paid GST on that. And earlier also, this time we have done for the public, but earlier we had done it for our member. So we cannot avail any credit for GST what we have paid, right?
No, the question here is this, that whether if this ITC is not available by you, you have to take the ITC first of all.
Yes.
And after taking the ITC, the question will arise whether this free of cost of food packets which we are distributing, which you have distributed to the members in last 2, whether that will require because
sorry,
there is no.
I'll just clarify it. Actually, we had done this for our steel fraternity at Kalamboli who was stuck up over there. So probably we had distributed 500 food packets worth 600, 700, 800 rupees each, for which we have already paid GST on that.
No, I appreciate. I mean, to whom it has been supplied is I understand. But the question here is that these food packets were procured on payment of GST, and now this has been distributed free of cost. Whether ITC is available or not, in my opinion, you should go ahead with taking the ITC. The question of reversal may arise during the department is surely going to raise the question of reversal. And because GST is not payable again on these food packets supplied by you because there is no consideration. And they are employees and these members are not related person. So no GST would be payable surely. The question would only arise is about ITC which has been availed by you or you might avail, whether that can be reversed or that should be reversed or not. In my opinion, this does not come under the free gift. Since this is not coming under the gift, this should be donation and gift. There is a distinction, and the law does not disallow the credit because something is given by way of a donation. This is not even a donation, I would say. One may probably try to fit it under the donation somewhat, but it is definitely not a gift. Since it is not a gift, therefore, the question of ITC reversal should not arise in my opinion.
Okay,
but
thank
you have
you.
to be prepared for the dispute.
Yeah, right. You are right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, there is one thing which normally happens when during the seminar. During the seminar, they say that if there is an overnight seminar for any company, they said that the accommodation and the members, you take a separate bill for that, which will be entitled for the reversal. But I mean, for the benefit of the GST. But the food wise, you are not supposed to get any GST benefit. So you take the food separately.
Hello.
Now,
Hemant. I would like to intervene in this. See now, as Shailesh Bhai has reassociated himself with Steel Chamber of India, we will definitely.
We can ask him later on this question.
In future,
let's not do it in right now.
Personal consultation regarding all these matters.
That will be better.
We have to disclose so many other facts also from where we earn and all against what we want to adjust. So let us take a personal consultation with him and then we'll clarify all our matters.
Yeah, let's not do it on this
So
webinar right now.
If any other participant wants to ask any question, because we are already
let's open it for all the people who anyone wants to ask.
So you can unmute everybody. Let us have a 5 minutes of open session and then we'll conclude the webinar.
Sir, I have one query. Can I ask Shailesh Bhai one question? Shailesh Bhai, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Seminar, and we are very happy to hear you. Sir, I am living in a cooperative society. We are collecting major repair funds. The monthly collection is 20 lakhs. So obviously, we are crossing the threshold, which is liable to be coming into GST 4. So, should we go for GST registration, or as a cooperative housing society,
I will only very quickly, without going into the discussion, because my views are one: a registered society is not liable to be pay GST, liable to be registered under GST at all. I have already clarified that.
Okay.
Principle of mutuality. So no registers, the society is liable to be registered under GST. One,
Okay.
that is one. And secondly, in any case, even if it is registered or intends to be registered, such a contribution to the maintenance fund or the sinking fund or the repair fund cannot come within the scope of the valuation, which can be subjected to GST,
Irrespective of the amount.
irrespective of the amount.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Right.
much.
Okay.
Anybody else, please? Jiren bhai. Jiren bhai.
Shailesh bhai, I just want to take your view.
Shailesh bhai,
Mhm.
Okay.
one small question I think privately also I ask you.
Mhm.
See, I have filed my return. It's a personal question indirectly. I have filed my return of the GSTR 3 and this March month.
Mhm.
And from whom I have purchased, nobody has filed the things. So
Mhm.
can it be a problematic for my claiming the ITC in
You know,
future?
we know that about the 2A.
Hmm.
Okay, if there are two ways of looking at it. One is okay, where the vendors or the suppliers invoices are not reflected on 2A, right?
Okay.
GSTR 2A, if they are not reflected for
Right.
the supplies procured by during the month,
Right.
then the law now rule 36(4) requires
Mhm.
that the credit should be restricted to not more than 10% of the the main reconciled supply, I would call it.
Right.
Those vendors supply, whether they are coming with the goods services, I'm not going into that controversy so far. It is a legitimate supply from the vendors, but somehow that they have not uploaded the invoices on their under GSTR 1. So they are not getting reflected on the 2A for the buyer. In that case, the 36(4) says it should be 10% of the not more than 10% of the reconciled credit. And this has now been actually put on a suspension from March to September. This 36(4) need not be applied, and then it should be consolidated. It should be applied at the end of the September. This is as per the part of this relief and relaxation package. Point is 36(4) according to me is an absolutely illegal piece of legislation. High Court challenge is already there, but where the vendors have not paid the tax, suppose then the issue is today or tomorrow, if it is established that either vendors have run away or they have not paid the tax, section 16 subsection 2 clause D says, so clause C says there are 4 conditions. One of the conditions is that the supplier should have paid the tax. This is actually in line with the VAT law, because excise and service tax never had this condition. This is all the legacy of the VAT who have dominated the drafting of the GST law and controversy of the Bombay High Court from Mahalakshmi text spinning judgment. So I will only sum up this entire controversy in 2 lines. One, whatever may be the condition under GST, which is similar to VAT also, if the supplier has not paid the tax and there is some sort of a malpractice or fraud, unless if the buyer or recipient of the invoice in this fraud is established, then the non-payment of GST would also result or should result into the denial of the credit to the buyer. But if the buyer is bona fide, buyer has made the payment, buyer's involvement or complicity in fraud, which might have been committed by the supplier, is not established, then just merely because the supplier has vanished, supplier has not paid the tax, buyer cannot be denied the credit. This is my view. And this view has been in the context of where there are any number of now recent judgments from the High Court. There are almost 8 to 10 High Court judgments in the context of where they have held. The same principle would apply here also, one. And secondly, the even House of Lords in a series of cases under the European Union cases, considering the VAT law, the House of Lords in the European Court of Justice, ECJ, the final body, there are some interesting judgment on the same line that unless and until the recipient buyer's complicity is established in the fraud committed by the supplier, the buyer cannot be allowed the benefit of the credit. What we call credit, in the European Union, they call it VAT deduction. They cannot be disallowed the benefit. You have to look at it from that angle.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
Shailesh bhai, I just wanted to take your view.
Hiten bhai.
Hello.
Hiten bhai.
Haan, bolo.
Hiten bhai is asking something.
Haan.
Yeah, Hiten bhai
Let him go ahead.
Hiten bhai.
No, I don't want to ask anything. Please continue.
Okay.
Just wanted your view, Shailesh bhai. See, as due to the pandemic, the revenues of the government are falling drastically. Recently, we had the figures of April, which was just around 460 crores, which was just 1/10 of what they have collected in last April, April 19. And this will be followed by the collections of May, June as well. So, and on top of that, there are rising expenditures due to COVID measures and different subsidies which have been offered to the general public. Are we looking at stricter measures and some rejig in the tax structures in future to just cover up these shortfalls?
You see, even with or without this pandemic and the serious dent in the revenue, some measures were already in the offing, because the way the fraud related cases were mushrooming under GST, which were coming to the surface, and how many are below surface, not detected, under detection, we don't know that. I can only say that we have come across such cases even under the earlier regime, Senvet credit. Whenever there is a tax, there will always be some people, the mentality to evade the tax will always be there. Nobody can be, nobody is no country is an exception to that. What is alarming is the manner in which the frauds are committed and the quantum of fraud under GST, which is really very alarming. Extremely. Majority are in the context of the fake invoices, bogus credit, bogus refund, overvaluation of exports. These are the serious issues, very serious issues. There are 12 to 14 types of frauds which are tabulated and which are being committed or can be committed under GST, and this is a world over experience. Another thing is the heart of the GST or VAT system is invoice, because there are three systems by which VAT can be introduced. One is a subtraction method, another is a capital addition method, and third is the invoice credit method. All the 189 countries, almost including India, have gone for the invoice credit method. And therefore, invoice is at the heart of the GST. Right? Everything is done on the basis of invoice. My supplier invoice shows me what credit I'm entitled to, and my invoice is what I am required to pay the tax. So
do you think the e-invoicing will be introduced very soon? Do you think
they are saying I have my reservation, and most of the 5-6 countries who have tried with this, this e-invoicing and all, so far they have not succeeded into that. We'll have to just wait and watch into that, because the system and neither the tax of the system nor the tax of payers in the country are actually risen to that level of maturity, in my opinion.
Right.
So the
this will
problem
definitely,
yes.
I mean, this will definitely expose the lacunas.
Right.
By which
but now the problem is here,
advantage.
And in the context of invoices, has been very famously said by a scholar, international scholar. He said that under the VAT system, invoice is a bearer check written on the government. And in our country, everybody is there to encase this bearer check every now and then.
Bearer check,
Yes. And I always say that if government can find out, because invoice is the largest selling commodity probably in this country. So if government can really find out that levy the tax on invoice selling only, I'm talking about the selling of invoice only, probably there will not be a problem of the deficit.
Paper has more value than goods.
Yeah, right. So there are some stringent measures. What is serious is, and here actually I will personally feel, and that's why I said that GST will require the DNA change, not only mindset. And we are all have to play our part onto this. Friends, the time are coming where we cannot be complacent in this type of happening around us. It is a time to really discourage as a body, as a taxpayers, what my next door neighbor is doing. I'm very seriously sorry for digressing slightly. I'm not advising or I'm not sermoning you. I'm only saying that at the end of the day, if we encourage or if we remain blind to this, or if we remain knowingly, unknowingly party to this type of frauds, at the end of the day, it will boomerang on us, and it will come one day. We will be paying the price for that. Those who are tax evaders would be least bothered about what type of stringent laws are being made. But those laws will ultimately affect the genuine, honest taxpayers who cannot escape only. So it's a time, some sort of discourage and boycott these type of activities. It not only affects the revenue. There are serious repercussions. It is found that, and there are international experiences are now coming to light, that the illegal money generated out of the GST or VAT fraud is now being channelized in 3 anti-national activities, and which are terror funding, the drug trafficking as well as the Hawala compound. These are serious because these are national security level issues. It is not as simple as that I generated some money out of the invoice trafficking. It is serious, fake invoices. Very recently, Germany have caught it. One of the biggest tax VAT fraud from UK was carried out by the Asian-born people and who have now very quietly shifted to probably Gulf countries. Probably the largest ever VAT fraud in the history of mankind. So these are serious issues. And I'm expecting some further measures.
Yeah, earlier we used to feel that there are two normally interstate intrastate problems. There will no be system where one can really monitor it because of GST and then MST and then the service tax and whatnot. After coming to the refined level of the GST, people started thinking that now it's becoming impossible to do any mischief with the taxation. There will be two tax slab. One will be local, that is a state GST, and there will be central GST. Suppose if you manage with the local, that is a state GST, probably you will be caught at the central GST. And if you may manage with central, you might be caught with the local.
Okay,
now, all these, with coming to all this and having the latest equipments, latest softwares, people are implementing. GST is becoming quite acquainted with our people. They are showing a very good figure of collection when the things were normal. Still, you feel that it needs a lot of things to be done in the question of softwares and then monitoring.
My constant suggestion for past 1 year has been, minimum in last more than 1 year has been, please don't make any major amendments to this law. Because most of the time, I think probably everybody has lost the track of where we were and where we are now. So don't make any major amendments to this law. Carry out only the minimum inevitable amendments. Let it be applied in the manner in which taxpayer has understood, tax professional has understood, and tax officer has understood.
Are we saturated presently?
Sorry?
Are we saturated? Are we saturated with the system? What is today going on?
You can always
we have completely made a mess of this. Now by amending this law,
3 years of time we have had 40 GST
by actually simply amending the law continuously, we are only fixing the temporary problem like this export under bond. I am actually artificially restricting the value. These are knee-jerk reaction. So my suggestion has been always that start drafting the phrase law, gaining from the whatever experience we have gained, whichever has been the lacuna. We have some very good legislation to follow of the international jurisdictions like New Zealand, Canada. New Zealand is considered to be, and Singapore are considered to be the if you are actually, most of you must have heard about that epic film, Western film called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly by Clint Eastwood, right?
Yeah.
So one of the internationally most respected, one of the weight expert, Sibren Nossen, Netherlands based, he has divided the entire weight world into the 3 categories: the good, the bad, and the ugly. New Zealand and Singapore are good. The Canada and the UK and European Union countries are bad, and South Africa and Brazil, who was the second country to introduce VAT in 1967, they are the ugly. I don't know whether India will actually make Brazil actually console himself. So the question here is, we have to make the entire new law on the sideline, taking the help from the renowned experts. There are many senior experts who are there in the field. Just we have done in DTC, the professional help was taken. Bring it in 23, bring it in 2024, but don't do anything. Otherwise, these are because GST is going to be one of the most important factor which will also determine the shape of the economy, the growth of the economy, one way or another. Because it is one of the most important factor of the overall, the cost. So it has a direct bearing on the growth of the economy, one way or another.
Thank you, Shailesh bhai. It's 7:30, and I think we should wrap it up.
I think it was a wonderful experience with you, Mr. Shailesh bhai. It was an eye opener, and regarding GST, I would say that you are not no less than a ready reckoner for GST, and you you heard very patiently and resolved queries of my members. And in future also, we'll be taking your services without any hitch now, as we have come very close to each other now. And I thank all my members also for attending us this webinar. I thank the members of the other associations, the authorities, to take participation in this webinar. And I think the new guidelines have also been issued of Maharashtra state, whereby I think they are allowing the offices to open with 10% of the staff. So that is also good news. At least somewhat offices and economy will start moving now. And with all that, I would once again thank Sailesh Bhai on behalf of Steel Chamber of India, and looking forward for another such interesting sessions in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sailesh.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sailesh bhai. Thank you very much.
Thank you.